This video is visualizing steep and shallow arms in transition. So it can be challenging to visualize the steepness or the shallowness of the arms. So I've got a couple pieces of electrical tape to help use the rib cage as a reference instead of looking at the golf ball and the club to the ground, because sometimes that can confuse things. You know, the difference between a club that looks like that and a club that looks like that are pretty minor. They can still be very significant, but they're pretty minor when looking on video. So using just the club to the ground can sometimes be more confusing than necessarily helpful. When I'm talking about shallow arm movements, I'm using a reference of basically the bottom of the rib cage. So if we were to, I've got this piece of tape just kind of at the bottom of the rib cage and parallel to it. So if we were to review the components of steep and shallow, there's two major components to shallowing the club. One would be the extension of the arms, because getting the club far away from me shallows it out. And two would be, is the club working more vertically, so kind of straight along my spine, or is the club working more horizontally, kind of like so, which would be more working along the bottom of my rib cage. What you'll see when you look at a lot of really good golf swings, or when you see some of the legends talk about the golf swing, you'll tend to see them demonstrating the club working more horizontally around their body. In fact, a lot of one common thought or drill that was given to a lot of golfers was basically a baseball swing, right? Which is essentially working those arms completely horizontally and then figuring out how to position that rib cage so that that horizontal movement would get down all the way to the golf ball. So what you'll see is the shallow arms, and what we're trying to get in transition is basically trying to get this close-ish to parallel to the bottom of my rib cage, or close to this horizontal line. If you're in the steep category, the club will be tending to work more along almost the 45-degree angle, maybe even creeping down towards 30. I would say that somewhere in that 30 degrees or above would be steep. So someone like Charles Barkley is almost vertical, where golfers closer to that 20 degrees, 10 degrees, 0 degrees, those are going to tend to look more shallow. So now you've got that kind of reference of what we're trying to look at. From the down the line, when you're looking at a lot of these videos, I want you to now see how if I do the shallow arm movements, this starts to kind of match the plane or the path that my rib cage is rotating around. It's not technically rotating around a plane, but you can kind of use that as a reference when you're looking at the arm movements instead of comparing them to the golf ball. Because what frequently happens is a golfer will work the arms vertically, but at the same time have a little bit of loss of posture, a little bit of slide, and lack of rotation. And now that vertical arm movement looks like it's coming well from the inside. So they'll say, how could I possibly have steep arms? I'm hitting big hooks. I'm getting too shallow. Hopefully looking at this grid and using the rib cage as a reference will help you visualize how very easily you could have vertical arm movement and still come well from the inside. So it's not totally about the club path, because one common problem for golfers who tend to hook the ball is getting steep and deep. So the club well behind, kind of like so, but working in more of a vertical fashion as opposed to working in a horizontal fashion and working more around. So if you've struggled with understanding kind of some of these shallow movements, the examples, the drills, hopefully this visual helps you tie together what I mean when I say shallow arms in transition. Use this little, just imagine this shirt or the grid on the golfers when you're looking at YouTube, or if you're looking at any of my analysis videos, and you'll have a better idea of whether their arms are working in a steep fashion or whether their arms are working in a shallow fashion during transition.